In the vast reaches of space, where war and conquest have been the driving forces for countless civilizations, there lies a story of unexpected survival and the emergence of a powerful alliance. The Kelari Confederation, a race known for their military dominance, found themselves blindsided by an enemy they never anticipated: humanity. Fragile, primitive, and seemingly weak, humans turned out to be far more capable than the Kelari ever imagined. A series of devastating battles followed, with human ingenuity and adaptability turning the tide against an advanced alien empire. But the true twist comes when the very survival instinct of humanity, honed over centuries, drives them to make a final, chilling warning: stop attacking, or we stop pretending to be civilized. As the war continues, the Kelari leadership faces a dilemma: continue their aggressive pursuit or recognize the power and potential of their human adversaries. In a bold move, the Kelari decide to enter negotiations, and an unlikely alliance is born. What was once a bitter conflict transforms into a partnership built on the common need to survive against an even greater threat: the Vex, a merciless enemy threatening both species. What happens next will determine the fate of both the Kelari and humans, as they stand together, united by their shared struggle and determination. The atmosphere inside the command center was thick with tension, a hushed, ominous hum filling the air as the flickering lights of the massive holographic displays cast eerie glows across the darkened room. The walls, lined with consoles emitting faint blue light, gave the impression of a vast, cold, and empty space, as if the very building was holding its breath. Commander Vazix stood tall at the central console, his 10 eye stalks twitching nervously as he scanned the incoming data. His alien body, armored and imposing, was frozen in disbelief. His mandibles clicked in agitation, producing an unsettling sound that echoed through the silence. His eyes, sharp, multiple, and focused, narrowed at the holographic display in front of him, the images flickering with a strange intensity. Vazix, speaking with rising frustration: This can't be true. The humans, they are just fragile, primitive creatures. How could they possibly have fought back? He shifted uneasily, as if the very thought of it disturbed him, his grip tightening on the edge of the console. The room, filled with senior officers and technicians, remained unervingly quiet, save for the soft, rhythmic beeping of the command consoles, like a pulse in the dark. Fazar, the admiral standing nearby, remained calm as he handed Vazix a data crystal, his purple scales slightly paler than usual, reflecting the dim light around them. The air seemed thick with unease. Fazar, voice steady but filled with an undercurrent of disbelief: Commander, I think you should see this. The data crystal slipped from Fazar's clawed hand, landing softly on the console with a soft click. Vazix snatched it up, inserting it into the central interface. The holographic display flickered again, this time revealing a shocking new image. The screen revealed the aftermath of their assault on Earth, the haunting view of their forces scattering across a vast battlefield, and at the center of it, a new, unexpected threat. The Kelari ships, giant, menacing, and usually unstoppable, were being shredded by smaller, more agile vessels. The human ships, though primitive in design, moved with an eerie precision, dodging blasts, and striking back with terrifying effectiveness. Vazix, voice rising in frustration, mandibles clicking louder: This is impossible. We couldn't have missed something like this. How did they survive our first wave? We obliterated their defenses, we wiped out their colonies, they should have crumbled. Fazar stepped forward, his face tight with concern, his eyes reflecting the hologram's glow as he spoke softly, almost whispering as if to ensure the enormity of the truth didn't overwhelm him. Fazar, calmly, with a chilling realization: Not only did they survive, Commander, they pushed us back. The 12th Armada, completely obliterated. Vazix's numerous eyes widened, his mind racing, struggling to understand the impossible. His breath, or what passed for it, came in short, sharp bursts as he gazed at the screen in disbelief. Vazix, shocked, almost disbelieving: Gone? All of it? How is that possible? How could we lose to them? Fazar's voice, though quiet, was tinged with a note of awe, something Vazix had never heard before from the usually composed admiral. There was a new, foreign edge to his words: fear. Fazar, whispering, disbelief seeping into his voice. The humans, they didn't follow the textbook strategies. They didn't behave like we thought they would. They surprised us, Commander, in ways we didn't even consider. The room grew heavier, the silence now palpable. The officers surrounding them stared at the hologram in stunned silence, their faces pale with the realization of what this meant. Vazix couldn't tear his eyes from the screen as he saw his forces strong, advanced, being torn apart by something completely unexpected. The hologram zoomed in, and for the first time, Vazix saw the full scale of the human vessels, sleek, fast, unpredictable. They darted between the massive Kelari ships, avoiding fire, and striking with devastating precision. The human ships, though seemingly fragile, seemed to be made of some hidden power, evading their attacks with unnatural speed and agility. Vazix, pointing at the hologram, growing frustrated, "What are those ships? We've never seen anything like them in our reports. They are moving too fast. How are they doing this?" Fazar shook his head slowly, the weight of the unknown hanging heavily on his shoulders. He stepped back from the console, his posture stiff as he spoke in a barely audible voice, the words leaving his mouth almost as a quiet admission. "Fazar," softly, with quiet disbelief, "we don't know. We've never seen anything like them. But one thing is certain, they knew how to fight back, and they did it better than we ever expected." The room fell into an eerie silence as the realization hit everyone present. The humans, fragile and primitive as they had assumed, had not only survived, they had adapted, and with terrifying effectiveness. The Kelari were facing something they had never anticipated, a force that had turned survival into an art, and now, a deadly weapon. The holographic footage flickered on the massive display, casting an eerie blue glow over the dark command center. The scenes playing out were chaotic, intense, and almost impossible to comprehend. Kelari capital ships, towering and powerful, were torn apart by brilliant blue beams of energy. The human ships, smaller and more agile, darted around the battlefield like insects, moving with a speed and unpredictability that defied all known tactics. Their movements were like shadows, slipping between the colossal Kelari ships, evading the incoming fire with stunning precision. Each blast from the Kelari ships collided with the void, hitting nothing but empty space, as the human ships seemed to dance between them, almost as if guided by some unknown force. The Kelari ships, massive and well-armed, were torn apart in a series of explosive flashes, their hulls cracking open with an unsettling sound, like thunder. Their greatest vessels, once symbols of unmatched power, now seemed fragile against the humans' relentless assault. Vazix, pointing at the hologram, voice rising in disbelief, "This is impossible. How did they learn to fight like this? These humans were supposed to be primitive." His mandibles clicked in agitation as he stepped closer to the hologram, as if he could somehow will the scene to change. He stared in shock at the rapidly disintegrating ships, unable to comprehend how the humans had turned the tide so effortlessly. Fazar, a grim smile curling at the edges of his lips, though his eyes were filled with awe, "It seems they've been preparing for something they didn't even know was coming." Fazar's voice was almost hollow, as if the weight of the realization had begun to sink in. The hologram continued to play, showing the human ships weaving through the chaos with impossible agility, slipping between the debris and striking at their enemies with an intensity that left no room for escape. The sound of footsteps echoed through the command center as Luzel, the scientist, entered the room. His mechanical support suit hummed quietly, providing the necessary strength to hold his frail body upright under the constant pressure of the Kelari gravity. His voice, distorted through his suit's speaker system, broke the silence. Luzel, voice distorted, yet steady, "May I explain, Commander?" Vazix turned sharply to face Luzel, his mandibles clicking louder in frustration. He waved a hand, motioning for the scientist to continue. Vazix, agitated, nearly shouting, "Please, tell me how we missed this. How did they become this capable? We underestimated them, but this is beyond anything we imagined." Luzel nodded, his mechanical suit making a faint sound as it adjusted. He stepped toward the console, activating another series of holograms. The images shifted, and the room fell silent as ancient human history began to unfold before their eyes. The hologram now showed images of a barren Earth, from their first hesitant steps on the moon to the clouds of industrial smoke that choked their skies. The humans, once primitive, began to adapt and grow. The footage sped up, showing their cities expanding, their technological advancements skyrocketing in response to the threats they faced. The very essence of their survival seemed to be wrapped in their ability to evolve under pressure, pushing their species to new heights when confronted with danger. Luzel, explaining calmly, his voice filled with quiet fascination, they were once a primitive species, barely surviving on their own planet. Their technology was rudimentary, their societies in disarray. But what sets them apart is their response to conflict. They adapt quickly. The images shifted, showing humans crafting crude weapons, then evolving them into powerful tools of war. Their weaponry, once simple and ineffective, became more sophisticated with every passing decade, each new development born from the necessity of survival. Vazix, skeptical, voice rising in disbelief, so they invented weapons before they even knew we were coming? How could they possibly anticipate us? Luzel's eyes, visible through the small glass section of his suit, shone with a quiet, almost unsettling certainty. Luzel, nodding, his voice calm but heavy with truth, precisely. Their paranoia, their creativity, it drives them to imagine threats, and then prepare for them. They don't wait for danger to arrive, they anticipate it, and they plan for it, no matter how improbable it may seem. It's as if they've been ready for war, long before the first sign of it. The hologram shifted once more, showing humans mass-producing weapons and fortifying their defenses in response to their own internal and external struggles. It became clear that the human capacity for innovation wasn't just born from a desire for advancement, it was born from an ingrained instinct to survive. And, just as Luzel had said, it was this very drive that had transformed them from a fragile, chaotic species into something far more dangerous. Vazix, narrowing his eyes, deep in thought, so, they've been preparing for war all along, even if they didn't know we were coming. We never stood a chance, did we? Luzel stood silently for a moment, watching the footage with a quiet intensity. The room was filled with the hum of the machinery, but in that moment, it felt like time itself had slowed. Luzel, softly, with a hint of awe, they may have been unprepared for us, but they've always been prepared for something. And now that they know what we can do, I fear what they might become. As the hologram flickered and went dark, Vazix stood there, his many eyes still focused on the blank screen. The weight of the information pressed down on him like an invisible force, and for the first time in his career, he felt something unfamiliar: fear. The humans, fragile and primitive as they were once thought to be, had just proven that they could fight. And not just survive, but win. The sound of Vazix's mandibles clicking once more filled the silence, this time slower, more deliberate. Vazix, under his breath, we've underestimated them, and now, we must face the consequences. The atmosphere in the command center shifted drastically as the hologram flickered to life, casting an eerie glow across the darkened room. The air, thick with tension, seemed to pulse with the weight of the message that was about to be delivered. Commander Vazix stood rigidly, his numerous eyes fixed on the holographic projection, as a human figure slowly materialized on the screen. The figure was calm, composed as stark contrast to the chaos and confusion that had filled the Kelari Command Center moments earlier. Dr. Miles Blackburn, the Secretary General of the United Earth Alliance, appeared before them, his figure sharp and clear despite the vast distance between their worlds. His voice, steady and unyielding, echoed through the command center, resonating with a quiet authority that sent an unsettling chill through the Kelari officers standing at attention. Dr. Blackburn, on screen, speaking with calm authority, to the leadership of the Kelari Confederation. I am Dr. Miles Blackburn, Secretary General of the United Earth Alliance. What you encountered was not our military. The ships that destroyed your armada were civilian vessels hastily retrofitted with defensive capabilities. They were prototypes, not our final designs. The words hit Vazix like a shockwave, his body tensing involuntarily. The enormity of the statement seemed to hang in the air, weightless but heavy with meaning. His mandibles clicked nervously, an audible sign of his growing unease. Vazix, growing tense, disbelief creeping into his voice. They are bluffing. This can't be true. They must be lying. Fazar, the usually calm and collected admiral, took a step forward. His usual composure had cracked, his purple scales paler than ever as he stared at the hologram in stunned silence. For the first time, he seemed uncertain, his voice quieter than usual, filled with a quiet but undeniable truth. Fazar, softly, I don't think they are, Commander. I think this is real. As the hologram flickered, Dr. Blackman's voice continued, unwavering, each word carrying the weight of centuries of human history and the gravity of the warning he was delivering. Dr. Blackburn, calmly, with a chilling certainty, for most of our history, humans have fought among themselves. We've become very, very good at it. But in recent centuries, we've channeled that capacity toward peaceful pursuits. We've pretended to be civilized. But now, if you continue to attack us, we will stop pretending. Vazix's many eyes widened, his mandibles clicking faster as his body tensed in disbelief. The room was so still, you could almost hear the soft hum of the command center machines in the background. A sense of dread filled the space, as if the very air had thickened with the weight of Dr. Blackman's words. Vazix, nervously clicking his mandibles, his voice rising with uncertainty, this is a warning. Stop attacking, or we stop pretending to be civilized. What does he mean by that? What is he threatening? The command center fell into a chilling silence. Fazar glanced over at Vazix, his face grim, a rare flicker of concern in his usually stoic expression. The words from Dr. Blackburn echoed in his mind, and he knew, deep down, that this was not just a simple threat, it was a promise. The humans, fragile and primitive as they once seemed, had revealed a side of themselves that had been hidden, an ancient power, a capacity for violence and destruction they had carefully controlled for centuries. Luzel, with a grim expression, his voice barely a whisper, it means, Commander, they are capable of much more than we've seen. They have the power to destroy us, and they will, if we push them too far. Vazix's eyes narrowed, his mind racing to process the magnitude of the situation. The scientist's words, though simple, carried an undeniable truth. The humans had been holding back, pretending to be something they were not: civilized, peaceful, even weak. But now, as they had shown, their patience had worn thin. If the Kelari continued their assault, they would face an enemy unlike any they had ever encountered. The silence in the room deepened, suffocating in its intensity. Vazix felt a cold chill run through his exoskeleton, a sensation he had never experienced in his long years of command. The implications of Dr. Blackman's message were clear: the Kelari had underestimated the humans, and now, they would have to pay the price for that arrogance. As the hologram of Dr. Blackburn faded from the screen, the room remained still, the weight of the warning settling heavily upon them all. The fate of the Kelari Confederation hung in the balance, and for the first time, Vazix knew they were facing a threat far beyond their expectations, one that could change the course of their history forever. Vazix, softly, almost to himself, we've made a terrible mistake. The hum of the machinery in the command center continued, but the air now felt heavier, as if even the room itself was holding its breath. The Kelari Confederation had never faced an enemy like this before. The question now was, would they be able to adapt in time, or would they become another casualty of their own arrogance? The High Council chamber on the Kelari home world. The atmosphere is charged with anxiety as the council members argue. The air is heavy with tension, the chamber lit by dim, flickering lights. The space is vast, adorned with ancient symbols of power and control. The members of the council sit in a semicircle, their exoskeletons shimmering under the faint glow, each face stern and unreadable. Tisa Riv, nervously standing before the council, her voice filled with urgency, if we attack again, it will be catastrophic. These humans, they are not just fighting for survival. They are innovating. They adapt faster than we can react. They've already shown us that they can defeat us in ways we don't understand. The room fell into an uneasy silence. The council members exchanged glances, their expressions serious as they considered her words. Tisa's mind raced. She knew how dire the situation was, but the others were still blinded by their pride and underestimation of the humans. Vazix, firmly, with a powerful tone that reverberated through the chamber, "We are Kelari. We control thousands of worlds. We have the numbers to crush them. This is nothing more than a temporary setback. We cannot allow a species like them to stand in our way." Tisa shook her head slowly, her eyes filled with frustration and growing fear. The weight of what she was about to say made her voice tremble slightly. Tisa Riv, shaking her head, voice urgent and strained, "You don't understand. They don't fight like any species we've encountered. They don't just get more aggressive when threatened, they get more clever. They bend the rules, break taboos, and find ways to make the impossible possible. That's what makes them so dangerous." The council leader, Councillor Zia, leaned forward in his chair, his voice heavy with concern. He had witnessed countless battles and made decisions that determined the fate of thousands of worlds. Yet, the humans presented a new kind of challenge, one that even he wasn't sure how to confront. "Council leader," Councillor Zia, concerned, his voice laced with authority, "retreating is not an option. It would invite rebellion across our empire. We cannot lose face. Our power, our reputation, it is what binds the Confederation together. We cannot appear weak." The chamber buzzed with low murmurs as the council members considered the weight of Zia's words. Vazix paused, his mind working through the dilemma. His pride was on the line, but he knew that the humans were not a threat to be taken lightly. Vazix, pausing, a dark thought crossing his mind as he stared at the holographic projections, "Then we must strike decisively. But how do we fight an enemy who does not follow any rules? How do we defeat something that adapts faster than we can control?" Tisa Riv's eyes softened with regret as she stepped forward. She had fought for the Kelari, believed in their might, but the humans had shattered all her preconceived notions. The cost of continuing the war was too high, and she couldn't ignore the truth any longer. Tisa Riv, quietly, her voice trembling with a touch of fear, "I think we should negotiate. We've underestimated them, and we've made a terrible mistake. If we continue down this path, we risk everything." Vazix turned to face her, his many eyes narrowing with thought. He had always believed in the strength of his people, in the superiority of the Kelari. But now, facing the undeniable reality of the human resistance, he felt a shift deep within him. Vazix, reluctantly agreeing, his tone heavy with the weight of his decision, "I will go. I will negotiate peace with them." The room fell silent. The council members exchanged uneasy looks. Vazix, the mighty commander who had led them to countless victories, was now willing to seek peace. The future of the Kelari Confederation, and perhaps the entire galaxy, would rest on the success or failure of this delicate negotiation. The Kelari ship approaches a human diplomatic vessel. The stars streak by as they enter a neutral zone between Kelari and human space. Vazix stands at the helm of the ship, his scales tense with anticipation. The human vessel comes into view, a sleek, dark ship, its surface reflecting the cold light of distant stars. It seems almost unnatural, a sharp contrast to the bulkier Kelari designs. Vazix, observing the human ship, his scales tensing with suspicion, "What kind of ship is that? It doesn't look like a diplomatic vessel." Tisa Riv, standing nearby, watched the ship carefully, her mind racing. She had learned much about humans since the initial conflict, but this was an entirely new encounter. Tisa Riv, whispering, her voice filled with unease, "It's multifunctional, Commander. Humans don't separate military from civilian ships. It's all the same to them." Vazix's eyes narrowed as he studied the ship's sleek design. It looked like a predator in the dark, a vessel meant for both exploration and defense. The uncertainty of what they were about to face filled him with unease. As the Kelari ship docked, the holographic communication system came to life. A human figure appeared on the screen, Dr. Ellen Reeves. She was calm, direct, her expression not one of hostility, but of pragmatism. She spoke with the kind of authority Vazix had come to expect from leaders, But there was something different about her, something that made him uncertain. Dr. Reeves, human, on screen, calm but direct. We appreciate your punctuality, Commander Vazix. Welcome aboard the Olive Branch. Vazix, entering the human ship, still uneasy, his mandibles clicking nervously. Thank you, Dr. Reeves. Let's get to the point. Dr. Reeves nodded, her calm demeanor never wavering. She understood the gravity of the situation, and she knew that the fate of their two species rested on this moment. Dr. Reeves, nodding, her voice firm, of course. Let's discuss the future of both our species. In the human ship's conference room, the atmosphere is heavy as both sides sit across from each other. The room is simple but elegant, designed for comfort, yet functional. The tension in the air is palpable, and every word exchanged carries the weight of the decisions to come. Vazix, with a sense of dread, his voice quiet but filled with regret, we attack you based on flawed intelligence. We were wrong. I apologize. Captain Emir, standing by Dr. Reeves, stepped forward. His eyes, sharp and piercing, locked onto Vazix with an intensity that could almost be felt across the room. His posture was rigid, his voice cold and filled with righteous anger. Captain Emir, human, coldly, with anger, you murdered civilians based on assumptions. You'll need to do more than apologize. Dr. Reeves raised a hand, a silent signal to Emir to stand down. The human captain hesitated but then stepped back, though his gaze remained fixed on Vazix. The air in the room grew thicker as Dr. Reeves, with surprising calm, took control of the conversation. Dr. Reeves, interrupting, with surprising calm, we are not looking for an apology, Commander. We want peace, but you must understand, our survival is our priority. And if you attack us again, we will not stop pretending to be civilized. The finality in her voice was undeniable. Vazix's heart, or whatever served as it, seemed to falter. The realization hit him harder than anything he had ever faced. The humans, despite their primitive beginnings, were not weak. They had been playing a dangerous game, one where their survival instinct had driven them to evolve into something they could no longer control. Vazix, finally understanding, his voice soft but filled with a newfound respect, so, you're offering an alliance? Dr. Reeves nodded, her eyes steady. There was no hesitation in her voice, no false promises. Dr. Reeves, nodding, her tone firm, yes. An alliance to protect both our species against a much greater threat, the Vex. Vazix's many eyes widened. The Vex. The ancient enemy they had feared for so long. The very thought sent a chill through his exoskeleton. But now, the humans had offered a path forward, one that, if accepted, could change everything. The question was no longer whether the Kelari would fight, but whether they would fight together with humanity against the greater threat, or continue down the path of destruction. As the hologram flickered and the meeting drew to a close, Vazix knew that everything had changed. And perhaps, just perhaps, this alliance would be the key to the survival of both their civilizations. 6 months later, the scene unfolds on a vast training field, where the once bitter enemies human and Kelari now stand side by side. Massive ships from both species fill the skies, their sleek forms cutting through the air with deadly precision. The bright lights of distant stars illuminate the scene, casting long shadows across the tarmac where soldiers, humans, and Kelari alike, drill and prepare for the looming Vex threat. The sound of ships launching, energy pulses firing, and tactical commands echo throughout the space as both fleets train together in perfect coordination. Tisa Riv stands at the observation deck, her eyes following the movements of the ships below. She watches in awe as human and Kelari forces move as one, the once unimaginable unity now a reality. The tension that once filled her chest has turned into quiet pride, and she can't help but marvel at the transformation that has taken place. What was once a space filled with distrust and hatred now feels like a beacon of hope. Her voice, laced with disbelief, breaks the silence. Tisa Riv, watching the training exercises, amazed, this is incredible. 6 months ago, we were on the brink of war. Now we're working together. She turns to Vazix, who stands beside her. The commander, once a symbol of military strength and unyielding pride, now carries a different air and understanding that only comes from seeing the bigger picture. He's calm, resolute, but there's a flicker of something new in his eyes. A small smile tugs at the corners of his mouth, the first sign of genuine satisfaction. Vazix, with a small smile, his voice low but filled with quiet reflection, the Vex changed everything. And maybe we've learned something from the humans. Tisa glances at him, the weight of his words sinking in. The Vex, once the greatest threat they had ever known, had forced them to face their own mortality. But in doing so, they had also been given a chance to evolve, to unite, to survive. She turns her gaze back to the coordinated drills taking place before them. Tisa Riv, thoughtfully, a question lingering in her voice, you think we would have made this alliance without the Vex? Vazix hesitates, his eyes narrowing as he reflects on the journey they've been through, the battles, the losses, the grudging respect that had been earned through blood. The Vex had been the catalyst, but it was the humans who had shown them the way. He lets out a slow breath and finally speaks, his voice steady but tinged with a newfound wisdom. Vazix, pausing, his gaze distant as he watches the ships, no. The Vex united us. But humans, they've taught us that survival is more important than pride. His words hang in the air between them, heavy with meaning. Tisa looks back at the humans and Kelari working together below, their movements synchronized, their minds focused. She sees it now what Vazix means. This alliance was not born from necessity alone, but from the shared understanding of what it takes to survive in a universe where threats lurk around every corner. Tisa Riv, smiling, her voice filled with quiet hope, they've shown us how to adapt, and how to cooperate. Maybe this is the beginning of a new era. As the camera pulls back, the sound of ships roaring to life fills the scene. The massive Kelari dreadnoughts glide through the skies alongside human spacecraft, their engines thrumming in perfect harmony. The forces are ready. The alliance is real. Together, the human and Kelari fleets prepare for the coming storm, the invasion of the Vex. The camera pans out even further, capturing the full extent of the united fleets as they stand shoulder to shoulder, facing the future as one. The once disparate forces, each with its own history, its own struggle, are now united in purpose. The stars shine brightly above, as if to bear witness to this monumental shift. This is no longer a world of enemies, it is a world of allies, bound together by the weight of survival and the promise of a new beginning. As the ships prepare for the invasion, the message is clear: this is just the beginning. What lies ahead is uncertain, but for the first time in history, both species are ready to face it together. The once bitter enemies, locked in an eternal dance of conflict, have now become allies, joining forces to face the ultimate test. In just 6 months, the human and Kelari fleets train together, ready for the invasion of the Vex. Their transformation from enemies to comrades is nothing short of remarkable. Together, they show that even the most divided species can find common ground when survival is at stake. But as they prepare for the Vex threat, one question remains: can this fragile alliance endure? Or will the clash of cultures and histories tear them apart once again? The story of this unexpected alliance between humans and Kelari is only beginning. What will happen when two once warring civilizations face their greatest challenge yet? Stay tuned as we explore the uncharted territories of survival, trust, and the unbreakable will to overcome impossible odds. What do you think? Will this alliance hold strong against the Vex, or will old wounds tear them apart? Share your thoughts below and let us know what you think will happen next.